Excalibur and Circus Circus having a baby. The world's largest In-N-Out is getting ready to open. We'll take a look at the Guitar Tower, and the numbers are in for January. Are they good or bad? All of that coming up right now on MTM Vegas, the solo show. Happy Monday, MTM Vegas peeps. I hope you guys had a great weekend. And this week we are going to talk about the numbers they came in for January. And there's some mixed results, but we'll dive a little deeper to see if the headlines make any sense. But let's start up north at Poker Palace, or the former Poker Palace. We learned that it's going to be called Club Fortune Casino North. And we have talked about this property before. And we did learn that it's going to open in mid-April. And the operators, Truckee Gaming, just got their gaming license for it. And it's so funny because in the meeting, they described this as Excalibur and Circus Circus having a baby. Now, I only know of this one piece of concept art, which I think looks pretty nice, but this actually is going to be, I guess, the newest Vegas casino, if you want to count it. Like, I guess if we're counting Hard Rock, Mirage transitioning to it as a new casino, we should count Poker Palace or Club Fortune North. We talked a little bit about the history of this place before. It was started by Mickey and Laura Coleman in 1974, but it predates that to a bar in 1951 known as the Jet Bar, and they bought that and then built a 700 square foot casino, eventually bought more land. It operated as Bunny's Casino from 1974 to 78, Mickey's Casino, and then eventually Poker Palace in 1980, and it stayed that way for a long time. But this will be the newest casino in Las Vegas, opening in mid-April now. For some of you, you probably will never get to this place, but we will show you everything to see if they deliver on that promise. I mean, this is a big promise. Excalibur and Circus Circus having a baby. That's a very specific thing. Now, from one casino redo and reinvention to another, Chris Holmes has gotten his drone out into the skies looking at the Hard Rock Guitar Tower. I drove by it on Saturday. It continues to grow, and you'll see that it's now at the part where it's sort of branching back out towards the top. In fact, I guess it's over 400 feet tall. He said that he had to get a waiver in order to film up high. And some of his pictures are great. You can now see inside the tower where the rooms are. You get a good look at how it's all going. Most of the glass on the Mirage building is now gone, but this continues to dominate the strip, and it seems to be the center of attention for everybody. As it gets bigger, I see more photos, videos. Everybody is obsessed with this, and I'm guessing that maybe in the next 3 to 6 months, we'll see this thing get completely enclosed in glass, and then, of course, the opening coming in 2027. But everybody's eyes are on the Guitar Tower, and we get this beautiful view from Chris Holmes of what it looks like from the air. And he also gave us a look at what the world's largest In-N-Out looks like from the air. This is, I think, 10,500 square feet, and this will be the largest in the world. And it's on the third story of the BLVD Mall. And so you're going to go up there to go get your nice In-N-Out, but it's looking good. And from these aerials, you can't see much. It's all still behind scrims, but you can see the size. It's huge, over 10,000 square feet, giant space up there. Now, somebody reached out and asked me if I knew when this was going to open. A lot of rumors that it's going to open the next week or two. It does seem to be heavily rumored to open in March, so we should expect this to come on soon, but no official announcement has been made yet, or at least that I was able to find as a recording. But pretty soon you will be able to go to the world's largest In-N-Out. But since last year, you've been able to go to the world's largest Five Guys, another 10,000 plus square foot space over at Venetian. I had a chance to check it out a couple weeks ago. I had been invited by the owner before, and that just didn't work out, but I wanted to go in there and try it. And my first thing that I want to convey about this place is the service. I went in, I was filming, I got a Coke, but they were so friendly, asking me to film everything, just talking, interacting with guests. I was truly impressed with that aspect of it. I've mentioned this before, like Pinky's over at Flamingo. It's very rare you walk into a place and you're welcomed like that in Las Vegas. And Five Guys, for what it's worth, they did that. They also have Coke Freestyle machines, so it's a good place to get a refill. And the prices are Five Guys, which is not cheap, but good quality sort of hamburgers. But what I loved is all the Vegas touches all around this place, tons of little Vegas artwork and other things. And then they also have a bar where you can get boozy drinks. And then they have a boozy milkshake bar where you can get regular or boozy milkshakes, lots of seating areas. And this is just right outside the moving walkway near Venetian. So the location is great. Like I said, free refills for those who know me. That's a great idea too. And now we're going to have competing 10,000 square foot hamburger places. Are you a Five Guys person? Are you an In-N-Out person? I know a lot of people love both. Let me know down in the comments. We're about to get into why moving walkways do not work in Las Vegas and all of January's numbers. But before we do, I would love to invite you to subscribe. Thousands of you watch this show every single week and are not subscribed. Help us reach our next goal of 60,000 on a road to 100K. Thank you in advance. But let's talk moving walkways. Carrie Balicki had this tweet where she showed the moving walkway at the Sphere at Venetian. And I don't think I know anybody who's been to more shows at the Sphere than Carrie, meaning that she has walked through this walkway many times. And this is sort of the extension that connects you from Venetian to the Sphere. What's interesting is when I was there a couple weeks ago for Backstreet Boys, that was actually closed. And so sometimes it's closed, they force you outside. But when they don't, you can walk through, and they built moving walkways in this space for everybody who wants to do it. But as Carrie points out, I don't think they've ever been working. I saw some people in like the comments on her thread saying that they did work, that they've seen them work. Carrie was there on opening night. She's been there tons of nights since, and it wasn't. The times I've been there, they haven't worked. And it's just a reminder, these are indoors. But why does Vegas struggle so much to get good moving walkways? And what's the point of building them if you're not going to use them? And on a side note, we talk about the Sphere a lot, but we never talk about the walk. You know, it is the Sphere at the Venetian Resort, and I guess it's technically part of Venetian, but it's very far away. And I wonder how many people have that thought when they're done with it. They're like, geez, this is so far, so much walking compared to, oh, it's just at the Venetian, it's just going to be right there. But maybe we don't hear those complaints because everybody's just so overwhelmed by the experience and they love it. But it is not for the faint of heart. Those moving walkways would help a lot. But we've talked a lot on this show about how moving walkways used to be the way to drag people in from the Strip at places like Caesar's Palace and Bally's. Excalibur still has theirs, and they operate it sometime, but it's a thing of the past. But let's get these new ones running. Come on, Sphere. But let's close with this. I want to dive into some of the numbers because we had the 2025 numbers were down in the whole year and the headlines and what exactly does it mean for the future of Las Vegas. So 2026, sort of a reset. January is a month that can be mixed. So we will see what it is. Now, if you just look at the top line numbers, the visitor volume was down 2.2%, 3.269 million people visited, but convention attendance was up. And if we look at the hotel occupancy, while it was down 2.4%, average daily rate up and revenue per available room was up. So this actually doesn't seem like terrible numbers, but there are some other things to look at because we've been talking through all these numbers through last year about how visitors were going down, but gaming revenue was sort of booming. And this is the first month where that really wasn't the case in a while. In fact, gaming revenue in Clark County was down 8.4%. It was down 11% on the Strip. Downtown did a little bit better at down 5.2%, but fairly ugly across the board. And that might, you might see the sky is falling. If they lose these high rollers, if they lose this increased gaming revenue along with less visitors, maybe Las Vegas is in trouble. But when we dive into it, it's really just Baccarat. Baccarat has helped them in the past with their numbers. And in this case, Baccarat hurt them. The Baccarat win on the Strip totaled 118.5 million, and that was down 95.8 million or 44.7% from last year, even though volume was up 14.3%. So you can just see it was just a bad month at the tables for the casinos. But when you exclude Baccarat, then normalized revenue figures rose by about 4%. The slot machine hold was the highest since last September, a 9% increase in the table drop. And this was also the 59th straight month where gaming exceeded $1 billion in revenue. Remember, going into COVID, that sort of dropped in, and then we've been hitting well above $1 billion now for almost 5 straight years. And here's some more good news if you want to spin it. The 2.2% decline, that is the smallest decline in a year. So we've been seeing down. Perhaps the declines are shrinking. And when you look at the gaming revenue, not as bad as you would think, just some variance in the casino games. But when we dive into the numbers a little bit more, the airport is still struggling. And I think it's worth covering Canada because we've had this anecdotal stuff over the last year about Canadians not coming to Las Vegas, and that has been reflected in the numbers. But I dove into it a little bit more to see exactly what that looks like now, and it's not good. WestJet saw a 27.9% decline in year-over-year passengers. Air Canada, a 34.2% decline in year-over-year passengers. Seat capacity from Canadian Airlines is at the lowest since 2006, and Air Canada just removed 82,000 seats just in the beginning of this year. So that means Canada, not only have people been boycotting, but the airlines have adjusted. We have less seats, less tickets available, less people coming, and it doesn't seem like that's going to be better. Now, overall, Canadians, I think we're about 3% historically of Las Vegas visitors, so it's not the biggest number in the world, but it's certainly dragging down some of the stats. And then finally, I want to point out downtown, because a lot of people think downtown is the greatest value. And when we look at the holds of slot machines and we look at those gaming numbers, downtown doesn't tend to be more generous in the casinos. But when it comes to prices, it definitely is. One thing that stood out to me was the occupancy downtown, 64.2%, and that is down 7.1% year over year. So just about a 65% occupancy, or 1 out of every 3 rooms sitting empty. Downtown's revenue per available room also fell 5.3%, but that average daily rate of around $100 is significantly less than half of what it is on the Strip, showing that for when you're paying for your room and you're doing these sorts of things, downtown is still a value, but they are struggling to attract people down there. And indeed, that whole myth of it being more generous downtown, perhaps that isn't holding up. But what does this mean? I mean, these numbers are really sort of mixed, but also probably more positive than we would want to expect. Yes, it declined, but the declines are shrinking. Yes, gaming revenue kind of sucked, but we can explain that with Baccarat. And we've seen several months last year where the Baccarat was the opposite, where they took huge holds. But long term, there's still a lot of challenges, a lot of wider economic things going on in the world today. And Las Vegas is still going to have to overcome this meme that it's expensive, that it's a ripoff, all those videos that are going out. This really does have an effect on Las Vegas. Millions of people see these videos of Caesars ripping people off, the sundry shops, the disconnect between the casino operators and the people. And now we can see that sort of playing out. But on the flip side, Saturday, I drove down the Strip packed wall to wall with people. These numbers are still historically great. This market has continued to grow. And maybe some adjustments need to happen here. We're finally at that inflection point. But just remember, these numbers are still significantly higher than they were in the past. And I'll leave you with this final stat from my research. If you go back to 2019, the statewide win in January of 2026 was 36.7% higher, or $360.9 million more than in January 2019, showing you that the market has grown, there is more gaming, there are more people coming, and yes, we are coming down from the highs, but all of that fear, I don't know. Let me know down in the comments. These are mixed. I think you could read these numbers both ways, but I think these are probably the most positive numbers we've seen in a while. A long year ahead, a lot going on in the world. Let me know, do you think Excalibur and Circus Circus should have a baby? What should that look like? Let me know there. Moving walkways, and of course, the largest In-N-Out versus the largest Five Guys. Which team are you on? Leave a comment below. We do 3 shows a week. Mondays, my solo show. Wednesdays and Fridays, Mark will join me for even more Vegas news. Thanks so much for watching. Talk to you next time.